Good afternoon. Western Tidewater Community Services Board welcomes you. First, I would like to thank everyone in attendance. We are thrilled to be able to offer this forum to everyone, especially with the current events we are faced with. This forum will be recorded and the playback link will be posted on Western Tidewater CSB's Facebook page. There will be opportunities for open discussion. If you could please write all questions or suggestions in the chat box. If you're unable to type or have difficulties with typing, please use the raise your hand function, and Brandon Rogers, the Director of Business Development, but also today's moderator, will call on you at the appropriate time. My name is Michelle Moore, and I'm the Program Manager of the Regional Peer Veterans Program and Mental Health Child and Adult Mobile Crisis Team. This afternoon, we wanted to create an open forum to discuss how mental wellness can be affected by what has recently transpired, to include the end of the Afghanistan war, U.S. military removal from the country, and refugee displacement. As a community services board, it is imperative that we meet the needs of all the service members, families, and others affected by the recent events, to include the array of emotions and mental health needs that may have surfaced. Traumatic events such as military combat can have long-lasting negative effects, such as trouble sleeping, anger, nightmares, being jumpy, and alcohol and drug abuse. A psychiatry study in 2014 found that the rate of depression of military service members to be 5 times higher than civilians. A national council, they shared 30% of active duty and reserve military personnel deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan have a mental health condition requiring treatment. That's nearly 730,000 men and women, with many experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder and major depression. Less than 50% of returning veterans in need receive any mental health treatment. The Veterans Administration reports that approximately 22 veterans die by suicide every day. Not only are service members affected, but also those who have been displaced by war. The American Psychiatric Association states about 1 out of 3 refugees experience high rates of depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, with an average of 3% being referred to mental health services. It is important that we, the community, work hard to eliminate the stigma around mental health services and assist those individuals who are seeking support. Today, for this forum, we have Stacy Young from Western Tidewater CSB, and we have also partnered with the Virginia Department of Veteran Services and have Stephanie Gaines and Anthony Swann with us to share personal stories and experiences. I would first like to introduce Stacy Young. Stacy Young is a licensed professional counselor and is the Regional Crisis Hub Community and Training Liaison here at Western Tidewater Community Services Board. Stacy has experience as a significant other to an active service member who has been deployed. Stacy brings a perspective that can highlight the military life from a loved one's perspective. Stacy.
Thank you all for having me here. So yeah, not only do I have brothers who served in overseas, stationed in Germany for a long time, so that ages me a little bit. But my significant other, my son's father, was active duty. I actually met him when I was in high school. So I'm going to age myself, and he was older than me. So we went through Desert Shield and Desert Storm together. And at the time, I was transitioning from high school to college. So we never got married because I was very focused on wanting to maintain my college that I gotten into. And as some of you know, when you're a spouse of a military person, you tend to go where they go. So my perspective is a little bit different because I didn't have quite the same community as a spouse might have. I didn't get to live on base. I didn't get to have the housing. And then I had him on an aircraft carrier across the world. So one of the things I remember, and it was interesting when we started talking about this, I started reminiscing and how much technology has helped keep people connected, was I would get to talk to him maybe once a week by phone if I was lucky, but it was the old fashioned mail, and we would letter the numbers. And some of you are probably gonna smile. I would number each letter, and we had a running thing because a mail plane came once a week or maybe once every 2 weeks. And that way you knew what order to open letters and communicate. And one of the things we used to do was try to write every day just to sort of stay in touch. And one of the challenges is we saw each other twice in one year's time. And you're talking about, young love and, that's that time where you all want to be together and spend time. And that was a challenge. And when he came back from deployment there, he came back to Virginia, and then he was actually redeployed to the Amchitka Islands in Alaska. So it's not like we got to spend any additional time there. And when he was on the island, he broke his ankle, and he was Navy, and they couldn't even fly him out for a while. So when he ended up getting flown out, he ended up with pins in his ankle, which essentially ended his ability to rejoin the military. And that created a whole nother set of issues for us. So came back to Virginia and went into fire service, like so many other people who either go into law enforcement or those types of things post-military. Initially, we eventually got married, but during his whole deployment, it was challenging because I didn't have the benefits of the community. But when he went into the fire service, in 9/11, ironically, is probably a bigger trigger for me than Afghanistan at the particular moment, because when 9/11 hit, he wanted to redeploy and wanted to re-enlist and attempted several times to try to re-enlist into the service after the initial attacks on 9/11, and it really impacted him in a very significant way, like it did a lot of, I think, veterans of that time. He got tattoos and everything to just sort of commemorate his not only commitment to the Navy, but to his commitment to the fire service. So it was a double whammy for him, and combined those types of pieces. But as a spouse, it was one of those things, and as a significant other, I often didn't know how to support back then. I was early in my training, early in my education. I was working in substance abuse, and I saw the impacts. I saw the impacts of substance abuse. I saw the impacts of isolation, the impacts of the gun culture. You only hang around with the people that understand your own lingo and understand your own thing. And those of us who are on the outside sometimes stayed on the outside. But at the same time, I also got to see the benefits of an amazing community, resiliency beyond resiliency, and significant others. And I say significant others because it's not just, men, it's men and women who are the significant others of people who serve, having to carry a tremendous load. And when my son was born, I have a child with autism, his father was not doing well at that time. And it's amazing how a community of people can really change how your whole trajectory is going to go. So, if there's anything I can say is, the VA is a resource, your other peers are a resource. My son's father initially did not like the VA, did not want to go to the VA, was angry at the VA because he blamed them for not being able to reenlist because his dream was to be a career military. And the ankle injury basically prevented that. So he had a lot of anger, but 9/11 changed that. And all of a sudden, 9/11, he went to the VA, he did peer groups and started being a lot more involved. And it's interesting sometimes how another event might change your perspective on seeking help from different sources. So the biggest thing, I can say is, as a significant other, the lack of distance and communication. I'm so glad communication has improved since then, that people are able to be in touch. But I know it also comes with its own set of issues because sometimes it's harder to detach and do what you need to do. And our fellow people who actually served will be able to speak to that, I'm sure, much more than I remotely could. But I'm glad to be here. I'm willing to answer any questions. I will openly share that he is no longer with us. He passed away in 2012, and part of that was combined trauma from his time. So that makes me someone who is very much passionate about people seeking help. Between his service and the fire department, it took a significant toll. So, I'm pretty transparent and open to share that, but I much rather have success stories. And I try to use his story as a way to say, don't let pride be your barrier to getting help, because that was his biggest barrier, was pride. Didn't want to be seen as weak, didn't want to be seen as less than, didn't want to be seen as not a good soldier, not a good fireman, not a good this. So I openly share that pride was probably one of his biggest barriers that led to, unfortunately, his passing. And as a significant other, it was incredibly hard to watch that and be powerless, especially working in a mental health field where I help people every single day, and I couldn't necessarily help the person I loved the most. So I just say, if anyone is struggling, reach out to your community, have your resiliency. As I say, a military support network of spouses, they can do anything. I mean, truly, they can do anything. Like, you want to put them in charge of the world, they're going to turn it around. They're the most resourceful, compassionate and giving group of people I've probably ever come in contact with, because everybody sort of has a shared experience of, this could always be me, or has been me. So, like I said, willing to answer any questions, but I want to turn it over to those who actually served. And thank you for those people who are here who have served. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you so much, Stacy, for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
I would now like to introduce Stephanie Gaines. Stephanie Gaines is currently the Veteran Peer Support Specialist with the Virginia Department of Veteran Services. Stephanie served 26 years in the Army, working in ammunition logistics. She served a total of 4 tours, 2 of which were in Afghanistan, and retired in 2016. Stephanie.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Like she said, I did serve 26 years in the Army, retired. I did have 4 combat tours. So there was a period of my life for 8 straight years when I was in constant movement, a year on deployment, a year off, year on, and some of them were to the day that I was, packing up and moving on. So it was a long 8-year process for me during that time. My last deployment was in 2010. I came back from Afghanistan and went back. I was actually stationed out of Hawaii at the time. And Hawaii was okay, but Hawaii is a beautiful island, but I started noticing then that things weren't quite right with myself. My sleep, the biggest one was my sleep patterns were all over the place. And then I come here to Virginia in 2011. And this was the first time in my military career that I had been someplace where I was not gearing up for deployment. I truly was, stood down, and I did not know what to do with myself. All I had known was prep for deploy, come back and start the cycle all over again. So it wasn't until I actually got here to Virginia that I was like, something's not right. I should be feeling relaxed. I should be good. But the truth of the matter was, at that time, I felt more comfortable in a combat zone than I did back here in the United States. Went through some trials and tribulations with my daughter, and I realized that I needed to make some changes, some big changes, because I was just a rageaholic. I was always angry about something and just did not know what I was angry about. So I finally reached out, got some help, and that was a process in and of itself, because my first counselor was not my final counselor. It took me, 3-4 times of trying to finally get the person that I felt the most connected with. So I started getting myself back on track, but still wasn't quite right. And it wasn't until I actually started working for Department of Veteran Services, that was about 6 months ago, that I really started to feel a little bit more better, more settled with myself, because I've discovered that for me and my own peace of mind, I just seem to function better when I'm helping other people. Taking care of myself too, but helping other people is like kind of my sweet spot. Fast forward to the events that have transpired over the last month or so with the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan. I said I was there twice, spent a total of 24 months in Afghanistan. My first time I was in Kabul, and then I was on Bagram Air Base. So both of those places are hot spots. They've always been, and they continue to be more so now. And I had a confliction of emotions. On one hand, I was happy that we were pulling out. I just did not like how the events were unfolding. And I guess I'm speaking to this point, especially if you have veterans who might be thinking and feeling some of the same things that I've been thinking and feeling over the last month. You feel helpless. You feel like your service wasn't worth anything. You feel like, why did I give so much for it to all end like this? So yeah, for me, it was just a roller coaster of thoughts and feelings. And I finally had to take a different perspective and look at things a different way. I look at it from the lens of, I made a conscious decision to join the military. I made it a decision to follow the orders of, the officers appointed over me. I deployed 4 times. I did my duty the way that I was supposed to do my duty. I executed my mission to the best of my ability. When I was in Afghanistan, I did those things that made me a good soldier, a good officer, took care of my troops. And I cannot fault myself for how I behaved while I was deployed. And I don't want to spend time regretting that time that I spent there, because the things that I did had value and they had meaning. And regardless of what has transpired over the past month, I don't want to negate that. So when you're deployed and you have a certain mission, and I look at myself in the mirror and I say, did I do the best that I could do? And I can honestly answer myself, yes. The rest of it, I cannot change. I can't go back and try to do something different thinking it was going to be a different result today. I can't wish, upon a star that things had have happened a different way. Life hands us what it hands us, and we just have to deal with and cope with it. So as I've been talking to people over the last month about things that have transpired, I try to keep people focused on the whatever bright spot you can find out of that whole process. Did you do what you were supposed to do? Did you execute your mission? Did you do everything that you could do within your power, within your ability to make sure that the mission happened at that time? And if that's what it is, then, just leave it at that. The rest of it, we can't affect that change. We can't affect the politics. We can't affect the government. We can't affect anything else that has happened. Just concentrate on what you did, what was your piece of it, and just be proud of your service. I'm proud of my service. I think that's it in a nutshell for me. I am open to, if anyone has any questions or anything more specific that they would like for me to address. I have no problems doing that. But I just kind of wanted to keep it focused on my experiences with Afghanistan and how I'm thinking and feeling right now. I was on another forum before I jumped onto this one. And one of the things that we talked about was a month ago, I was angry, or I thought I was angry about everything that had happened. But since that time, I've had time to sit down and think and process and realize that it wasn't really anger, it was more disappointment. And that I have to now learn to be okay with that and learn how to move forward with that. And the way that I do that is focusing on my the things that I did well while I was in the military. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sharing your story, and thank you for your services. I would next like to introduce Anthony Swann. Anthony Swann is currently the Peer Support Director with the Virginia Department of Veteran Services. Anthony served 2 tours in Iraq in the infantry unit, where 22 Marines lost their lives and a countless number injured. He has also lost fellow Marines in Afghanistan. Anthony received the Purple Heart for his wounds in 2004. Anthony.
Well, hey, good afternoon, everybody. It is always good to see people that want to learn a little bit about what we have done as far as military personnel. And I hope that when this is over with, we'll be able to answer your questions and be of some, be able to give you some positives out of what we went through. So just to give you my story, as Michelle said, I am a 27-year Marine. So in 2004, I was sent to Iraq for the first time. I went with an infantry unit. And if I don't know how much you know about those dates back in then, but those are the times when Iraq was very bad. It was an evil fight. And everywhere we looked, because people weren't in uniform, we could never tell who was the enemy and who was a civilian. So if you want to know anxiety and frustration, if you don't know where the threat is coming from, that is a high intense fight. So that's what we went through in 2004. During that time, in a little beautiful place called Zaydan, and if anybody's ever been to Iraq, you know I'm lying. There's no such thing as a beautiful place called Zaydan. I was hit with an IED. Don't remember much about it, but I do remember being told that they was going to ship me home, and I told them no. I had to stay with my Marines. There was no way I was going to leave them. And because of the rank that I had at that time, I got my way. So I completed that tour, came home, and I knew then that things had changed for me. The IED was a headshot. And so I knew that I wasn't feeling the same. But again, I did not tell anybody. I had no intentions of telling anyone. My Marines were going back, the same unit, and I had every intention of going with them. And I'll throw this note in there just to show you how family can affect you sometimes. My daughter, who was in California at that time, she called me up because me and her mother had separated. She's a grown woman. She's got her own children. She calls me up and she says to me, she says, "Dad, I just got word that you're going back to Iraq. And I said, yes, dear, I am. I have to go back. She says, do you have to? I did not tell her I had volunteered. I didn't think that was the thing to do. Her next words out of her mouth was, I don't want you to go, because if you go, you're not coming back. If you don't think that was a kick in the teeth. But I assured her I'd be all right. She had known I just barely made it out the first time. So like Stephanie, back-to-back tours. 2005, I was back into Iraq. And during that time, that was the first cordon of Fallujah. We were involved in that. Again, an intense fight, but we were pulled out. Very, very tough fight. But we were pulled out of there. And then the second Battle of Fallujah is the one everybody talks about now, if you know anything about the Battle of Fallujah. But the first one was just as tough, but we did not complete the mission. They moved us out. As Michelle said, lost 22 Marines on both tours. Came home the second time, knew that I was sinking. So I had gotten to the point that I was a Marine Monday through Friday. I would go to work. I could sit there, do my job, give directions, do everything in this world I was supposed to do. On Friday afternoons, I came home. And at the time, my family and I had already separated, as I said. I came home on Fridays. I closed the door. I opened the bottle. I kept the bottle open till Sunday night. And I did that for quite some time. And it was me isolating and trying to process what was going through my mind. But what I did not realize is that I could not do it by myself. But I stayed in that frame for a long time. Actually, after that, I transferred over to Okinawa, Japan, stayed there for quite some time, and then came back to Virginia as the director of the Staff and CO Academy. So I had a lot of people food. I kept getting ranked. People saw me, they didn't know, but the depression was growing, the isolation was growing, and I was still hitting the bottle pretty heavily. I actually got out of the Marine Corps before I got any type of help. I went to the Wounded Warrior Regiment up in Quantico, Virginia, as a recovery care coordinator. And they have therapists up there, clinicians there that works in the regiment to help people out. And there was one, now I always remember this lady, she saw that once I finished work, I left and I come back the next day. And I guess she saw something was wrong with me, but she began talking to me. And as she began to talk to me, I began to open up. And I'll tell you this, and we talked about this not too long ago about veterans. It wasn't an easy task. Again, I go back to what I said before. I have been taught in all my years to take care of your own problems. And if you let anybody in, you were weak. And that daggone, weakness is not an option. And that's what we have always been taught. And another thing, I'm gonna put this out there too, is to turn fear to anger. Because if someone is fearful, they run away, and the anger you attack. And the military teaches us to attack. So all my fear and everything was, I turned it to anger or to isolationism. So it took me a little while, but over time, I began to see that the lifestyle I was leading was not going to lead to where I wanted it to be. And then as things continued to evolve, I began to get myself together to start to believe in me, actually. And I think that was the first thing I had to do, is to believe in me and my capabilities. And then I started to let people back in. I am a lucky man right now. I have an awesome wife who daggone is willing to listen. And when things are going bad, she gives me my space. And then she comes and kicks me upside the head and puts me back in place. So can't do better than that. So Afghanistan comes up. And I have lost a lot of friends there over the years because of how long I've been in. And the Marine Corps is a small unit. there were those that I was friends with that lost their lives. So like Stephanie, the first thought that came to me was anger as to what the situation was. I was depressed, I was frustrated, I was angry. I think I went through every emotion possible. But as time went on, I had to realize that one is that the fight that we as the combat veteran that was on the ground, we did our job. We did our job in Iraq, we did our job in Afghanistan. I will say that we as Americans, as far as the military is concerned, have always done our job. I don't remember a fight where we had to leave because the enemy was beating us. It was because we were told to pack up and leave. That's a big difference, if you ask me. So that is one of the things that kept popping through my mind as this went on, is that we've done our job. It's unfortunate that we cannot make a country believe in itself and fight for its own survival. And so I finally got back to a good place, which is where I am now. I believe in us, and excuse me. I tell veterans every day that I meet them that believe in the things that you have done. We fight for the person to our left and right, and we stuck with them, and we've always been with them, and they have always stuck with us. So be proud of your service and be proud of the things that you've done. You can't get any better than that. So still have some frustrations, but I do believe in the things that we have done. And I believe that we as a military force are still some of the best people in the world.
Thank you so much. Truly, thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you for your service. These stories have been so impactful, so thank you all again. Mental health care supports recovery in individuals who may be experiencing mental health challenges. The goal is to improve quality of life that may include, but not limited to, improved mood, clear thinking, reduction in depressive mood, increased self-esteem, and improvement in relationships. Western Tidewater Community Services Board wants to be solution-focused. Our goal for this open forum is to get feedback from the community on what our agency can do to support mental wellness within the military community. We currently offer peer support services for veterans who may be experiencing a mental health crisis, as well as non-crisis preventative support. The goal of the peer support specialist is to provide linkage to resources, individualized peer support, peer-led support groups, and advocacy on behalf of the veteran. Starting next week, the Peer Veterans Program will be offering mental wellness pop-up outpatient sessions for the public. These are 1-hour free therapy sessions that can be anonymous and will be offered every Wednesday and Friday to service members, family members, and displaced individuals. These sessions can be scheduled through calling our regional crisis line at 1-877-255-2989, and the moderator will be typing the number in the chat box as well. We will also post the days of our mental wellness pop-up outpatient sessions and this video on Western Tidewater CSB's Facebook page. We would now like to open the floor for questions and suggestions on how our agency can best support you.
And while we're waiting to type the chat or to get any questions to pop up, Michelle, I just want to make sure folks note in the chat, I did type the number. It's 1-888, not 1-877, just in case you started to write that while we're reading it off. I want to make sure that people get that number.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for any of us as speakers too? I think we all said we would be willing to answer anything that people might have as well.
Well, as the moderator, privilege to ask, got smart folks on the phone and would love to hear some good answers. So, Anthony, I think I'll probably specifically direct this to you. What was the big turning point in you deciding that you wanted to change or to seek help or to take a different path than you were on? What was that big deciding factor that moved you forward? And the others are welcome to that too, but you were pretty open about some substance abuse and those kinds of things. And just what was the really big changing point for you? You're muted. I didn't want you to waste all the wisdom.
Before I started having my issues, I had great friends. There were people around me all the time. I smiled a lot. Don't do it as much now, but I'm a lot better than I was. But I lost people. I felt so alone in everything that I was doing. There was nobody that I had at that time to talk to. And honestly, the hangovers and the feeling of not accomplishing anything, it all came together. And as it came together, I knew I needed help. I was still reluctant because of this, what I gave you a few minutes ago, which is that we've always been told that you had to handle your own situations. But I finally found somebody who, and I think the word that we all use, even in peer support, we use it a lot. I found somebody who listened. They didn't try to steer me in any direction. It was just tell me what you're going through. How do you feel? Why do you feel this way? And they let me work my own issues to a certain point. I think that's the way I want to put it. Until I was ready to say, I need help. But what I didn't realize is they were already giving me the assistance that I needed. But by the time I did realize it, I was well on my way. It was just, I decided I needed a change. I was better than that. And I know I was. At least I felt that I was.
I can just jump in there and answer that a little bit too. I think for me, one of the big catalysts for change for me was because of my daughter. Like I said, I was a rageaholic and I didn't know why I was so angry, why I was always lashing out. And I felt like she became a target. I was a single parent, so she became a target for me at home. And I knew I was hurting her. And so I was like, well, I need to get her help because I'm damaging her. And then after going through some, sessions with her counselor, it became apparent that I needed to get myself help too. So I did that and I started working through some of my issues. And then another turning point was reading through some of my charts from a counselor that I had. And she wrote in my file that I was a functional alcoholic. And at the time, I had absolutely no idea what that was, what that meant. I kind of got offended at first. I'm like, how the hell, how dare she write this in my chart that I'm a I didn't know, but come to find out, she was absolutely right. And just like Anthony, you work all week, everything, you're getting your job done, everything's working, but you're drunk all weekend. But I'm able to get right back up on Monday, never missed a formation, made all my deadlines, did everything. I was high functioning, but I was also slowly drinking myself into oblivion as well. So those two moments for me was what really started me on the path of finding some real help and finding some resolution.
I'll take the liberty and just ask a quick follow-up because nobody's cut me off yet. Given those explanations, is there something that you wish or think could have been said or done that would have helped you to turn the corner a little quicker? And how should that maybe shape some of the approach that we have right now in reaching folks that are out there struggling at this point in time?
Early on, through my first couple of deployments, the Army had a very bad habit of asking people the moment they got off the plane if they needed to talk to a mental health provider.
Yeah.
And everybody, no, we don't want to talk, because they knew it was going to hold up your family reunion. Everybody just wanted to get home, get with their families, and maybe deal with it later. But later never really came if you answered that question, no. So I think they're doing a better job, or they have done a better job with that in recent years. But for me, during my time period, during my service time, that was a huge barrier. And then another barrier was, they teach you to be dysfunctional, to function in a dysfunctional state. Mm-hmm. And when you no longer have that dysfunction, you're still trying to function, and it doesn't always work that way. So I think services just have to do a better job of how they're treating people during their transition, especially out of the military. I think that would have helped me out a lot. It took a lot for me to admit that I needed help, because I was a leader, and leaders can't show signs of weakness, and allowing a path for leaders to actually get the help that they need. I'm not sure that answered your question, but I think that would have been instrumental for me, had we had a safe space to admit that we needed help back then.
And on this front, I'll say this: as far as I was concerned, everyone who knew something about my problem wanted to tell me what to do. And I didn't want to hear that. Telling me what to do was not an option. It was not something I was going to listen to. As a matter of fact, it was that brought out more anger in me than I would normally have had. As soon as you said to me, well, you need to stop drinking, or you need to stop doing this, you need to stop isolating, it brought out more anger. It didn't lessen it. I knew they were telling me the truth, but I hated the fact that somebody was telling me what I had to do. So my turning point was this: there was somebody who listened. They gave me open-ended questions, but the biggest thing is that when I answered the question, I wasn't told, well, that's not true, or you can't say it that way, or whatever. They took what I said. They allowed me to continue down a path, but as they kept asking me the open-ended questions, I began to come to my own realization that the path that I was going down was not the path that I wanted to go down. But it was a slow turn. It wasn't a quick one. It was a very slow turn. Like I said, I knew I was in trouble when I came back from Iraq the second time, which was in 2005, and by 2010. I was just starting to turn, but it would have been faster. Well, I'm kind of wrong there, because actually I didn't start trying to turn until just before I got out of the military. But it would have been faster if somebody had listened more, or asked me to open-ended questions and let me voice my opinion and my pains. I think that would have been a lot quicker.
Thanks to both of you. That's really, I think it's really insightful, very helpful. And Anthony, that right to self-determination is such a key, no matter what counseling we're doing, I think, and allowing the person to drive their treatment and knowing that, nobody needs it to be mansplained to them. The active listening and active ear is something we should all be keeping in mind, no matter who we're speaking to. But I think especially poignant here, because you're taught to be self-sufficient, or at least with your brothers and sisters that you serve alongside. And so I think that's very helpful. I think it's very insightful. And I just appreciate the openness that you both have had with us.
Okay, my turn. I just wanted to ask my fellow panel, what do you think would be helpful for family members? What would be some good supports?
I think that a lot of times family members are kind of often overlooked when we're dealing with service members, because a lot of them are kind of on the front lines too, because they're the ones that deal with us damaged people when we come home. So I think to be supportive to them, I think it would be very helpful to them to have their own type of support groups where like-minded people can get together and talk and get, because their perspective is a lot different than my perspective. They go through things, I know I've put my family through things that I know I've done it. How it affects them, I'm not sure, but I feel like they need a supportive system to help them deal with us.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, please.
This is Sheila. I would like to, if you don't mind, expounding on this area. Anger is also something that can be used as a shield as you are, working towards your goals. And from your perspective, what's the best practice for the persons that you worked with when anger was your shield as they were, assisting you in coming to terms with how you wanted to, shape the rest of your life?
Are you asking that of us?
Yes. If I happen to be that counselor and you were angry, sometimes if you're not ready, or if you're not ready to make movement, that anger can come out as a defense to push people away from you, to keep them from penetrating whatever defense has been set up. So for you, what's the best practice you've seen that worked for you when you presented that anger towards those people who were trying to support you?
I think for myself, it was the education piece. Because at the time, I did not understand why I was angry, why I was lashing out. But I guess this really wasn't geared towards my family members. It was more geared towards my counselors and them helping me understand why I was hypervigilant, why I was angry, why certain things were happening in my brain that was making my brain click. So for me, it really was learning about some of the behavioral aspects of why a person reacts the way they react, and why my brain was always on high alert when it didn't need to be on high alert here. So the educational piece for me was very beneficial in understanding the hows and whys of things, but that was for me. I felt better knowing that information versus not understanding why I was reacting the way that I was reacting, because even though I knew kind of someplace in my mind, but I didn't know why, like I said, I honestly didn't know why I was angry and why I was always lashing out at my daughter. So it became a learning curve for me to really understand what I was doing was actually a normal reaction to abnormal situations.
Mm. I think for me, I'm, and I can't tell you everybody's like this. During that time, I always wanted to prove people wrong. So, there were people that would say to me, they're talking to me about things. They say, I want to tell you something, but you're probably going to get angry about this. Or, you might not like this. Or can I tell you this and you take it for what it is? These were the kinds of statements that were made to me, and I wanted to prove those people wrong. Yes, I can take it. Go ahead. Tell me what you have to tell me. I won't say that daggone it wasn't upsetting after I heard it, but I meant with everything in my heart not to let them believe that it was. It was it was me trying to do something just the opposite of what anybody ever told me to do. But there were times that I didn't even realize I was angry, or my voice had raised, or I was yelling, or something like that. But it was always, well, the person who was helping me, they would tell me, "You're angry right now," so and they would walk away. And I'd feel stupid later on because it was nothing. Whatever it was nothing to be angry about. And I would try to control it the next time I saw it. But that was me. I can't tell you. I'm pretty sure everybody does it just a little bit differently. But that's one of the things I did that did happen with me, is that, people I think they would call me out. And like I said, I didn't want to prove them right. So I would go just the opposite. I would try to be as calm as I could. And honestly, I think it helped me a lot to keep me in place.
As a family member, to kind of go back to Michelle's question, twofold was that we almost weren't allowed to be angry. Like, there's an unexpected code of honor among us as significant others or children of, that we sort of have to abide by the same honor. And weakness, you don't show that weakness, and you don't disgrace or dishonor your significant other by showing your weakness either. So I think there's a lot of anger that gets repressed also by being with someone who's having those types of issues. And in my case, when Anthony spoke about people used to be around, as my significant other started to unravel, the people left. And not only did they leave him, they left me. And so it was really hard to battle my own sense of pride to reach out and ask for support as I continued to watch my loved one unravel and unravel to the point of divorce, which we've all mentioned, single parent and divorce. So somehow we all didn't make it through a relationship. And ultimately he died of his own hand. So, I remember distinctly, memory that triggered when you talked about turning points for him was he was in the fire service and he was working on 4th of July, and he got a guy said to him, "Hey, don't leave, I'm going to need you," and shot himself in front of him. And that particular call brought back every military experience and everything else. And I remember getting called that they had taken him back to the station, and he would not come out of the bathroom. Like, I literally had to come and get him and force him out of the restroom because it had brought back every little thing. And so sometimes I think we forget, even as you transition out, there are other things that happen that bring that up. And that was a turning point for him in his substance use. And he had some major substance use issues and tried to battle them a couple of times. And like I said, we lost our battle. But the isolation that happens with that, because people don't want to be associated with that dishonor at times, or dishonorable behavior. And as a significant other, you don't want to be associated with that because you've spent your whole time being in this culture of, respect and image and like, kind of like you guys said, there's this other layer of us being tough and strong and resilient and understanding and compassionate to a fault that we don't always seek our own help for ourselves as well. So I would say, the isolation is probably the biggest thing when you start seeing those loved ones being isolated as well, how we can reach out to them in their own way. I'm not sure if I answered Michelle's question. And
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. That was very, very helpful.
And I still struggle with anger because I have tremendous guilt. Days I deal well with guilt, and other days I do not deal well with guilt.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
No, I was just going to say my happiness is not continuous. There's a struggle every day. Like I say, I'm very blessed. I have someone in my corner right now that will listen to me, work with me, but I still have bad days. But one of the things I have learned is to get up in the morning, and we talked about this on the listening group just before you guys, is I do look at the positives in my life, because I know negativity grows, and as negativity grows, depression grows, and everything else grows. So I look for positive things in my life. I got great coworkers like Miss Gaines there, Miss Eaton down here. I enjoy seeing them. I enjoy talking to them, and I enjoy coming to work, and I enjoy my family now. And even on my bad days, I know that there is somebody I can turn to get a laugh out of me. Like I said, I laugh more now than I laughed in 27 years in the military. I enjoy it. I want to grin every chance I get. I grin at things that are not even funny anymore, but it's still nice to smile, so I always look for the positives.
Awesome. I did just want to add that, we are here to help. Our crisis line is open for everyone in Eastern Virginia. And we will also post the Veterans Crisis Line information in the chat. Did anyone else have any, thank you, Brandon. Does anyone else have any questions or suggestions?
I've got just one more, Michelle. All right, you guys have done a great job telling us what to do. What don't you want us to do? What runs you away? What aggravates you? What feeds the negativity?
I think Anthony kind of alluded to this earlier when he was telling his part of the story, is that, sometimes, I don't know what everybody's role is here on this forum right now, but as mental health professionals, sometimes you want to be more directing, and sometimes it's not what veterans want or need to hear. It's not all the time helpful. So really just kind of letting people guide themselves through the process is much more beneficial than trying to direct and dictate what a person should do. Because truth be told, in the back of our minds, we know what we should be doing. We know that some of our behaviors are problematic. We know that. I don't necessarily need you to throw that in my face all the time. So sometimes just kind of taking a step back and trying to, let a person kind of figure out their own path is much more beneficial than being directing. And even with me, sometimes that's a little bit difficult in my role as a peer specialist, because there's some people that I work with and I'm like, oh, if only I could just get you to do this, but I know that's not my function for them. So it's like, okay, let them, guide me on their path, as opposed to me trying to lead them where I think they should go to make themselves better.
So just a little background real quick, and I'm going along with what Stephanie just said. E1 through E5 in the military, usually he's about a 4 to 6 year person. Their job is to do what they're told. So if you take these people who just came out of high school, just got out of their parents' house, and their parents have been telling them what to do, they come into the military and daggone it, we're telling them when to go to sleep, when to get up, when to eat, when to do bodily functions. Then by the time they get out, the last thing they want to hear is someone who tells them what to do. They will give you quick pushback because they are tired of it. And then you have some of the older veterans like myself that's been used to telling people what to do. So sometimes we can get kind of ornery too, to tell you the truth. So it is better. It can be very frustrating to veterans when they are giving directions, and this is what you must do, what you shouldn't do. I think that was one of the biggest turnoffs for me when I first got out. How are you going to tell me about me? I think that was the biggest frustration I had.
For me, it's make sure you support the family as the family member, not the family member and the service member. Sometimes it gets blurry, but sometimes you have to be able to deal with your own issues and not always have it tied directly to the connected. We're not always seen as our own person. Sometimes we're seen as an extension of.
Yeah. Thank you for that. This discussion has been very helpful. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add? I've been taking a lot of notes, so I appreciate this. Okay. Well, Western Tidewater is excited about working with the community to serve members of this population in this way. I would like to thank everyone who attended today, and a special thank you to Stacy Young, Stephanie Gaines, and Anthony Swann for sharing their stories. I would like to thank all the service members in the audience. Thank you for your service. To all the family members, thank you for your continued support for the military service workers. Thank you to the community partners, Vet Center, Virginia Department of Veteran Services, Community Services Boards, behavioral health agencies, and all the other supportive agencies as we work together to meet a common goal. I will be placing my contact information in the chat box. So if you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And then please check out our agency Facebook page and website for updates and additional services. Thank you everyone so much, and please enjoy the rest of your evening.